Still pending. One move that is done. Dominik Szoboszlai, the Hungarian international, joining Liverpool on a 5-year deal for a reported £60 million. Going to wear the number 8. Says he has a tattoo of Steven Gerrard. That should go over well at Anfield. Of course, this is one of the moves that got done while Gab was away on one of his many, many vacations. So we're looking for some Gab Marcotti perspective here. Give us the 5 moves that have happened and that you think will happen, Gab, that most intrigue you so far this summer.
All right, these are moves that are intriguing. They're not necessarily they're the best moves, but I think that the best storyline. Some of them are going to be obvious. So in 5th place, I have a guy you were just talking about, and that's Mason Mount. I think it's interesting that Chelsea born and bred, and then he goes and he's going to try to relaunch his career. I know that the feeling was, well, they need to sort out the head, they need a center forward. Guess what? Christian Eriksen's, 32, 33 years old, bad ticker. You're going to have to replace Christian Eriksen as well at some point, maybe a year from now. And I think when you can get a guy like Mount, if you can motivate him, if you can get him back to be the player that he was 2 years ago, he's going to be a bit special.
Number 4.
Next up, I got another guy, another former Chelsea guy, another reclamation project, and that is Kai Havertz. Look, he may not be the best on earth, as Chelsea fans used to sing about him, but I also think this guy's another guy who really has everything. He's got size, he's got strength, he's got silky moves, he's got technical ability. People look at the number of goals that he scores or doesn't score. I think it's going to be so interesting to see him play for Arsenal. Can he be a Harry Kane, Karim Benzema type goal scorer and goal provider? I think so. I think that's how Arteta's going to use him. Up next, Karim Benzema, Ballon d'Or, walking away to go to Saudi Arabia. He's kind of the symbol of the Saudi story with the public investment funds pouring money and taking over those teams, more so than Cristiano Ronaldo, for the simple reason that Cristiano came in January. That was a one-off. Now Karim is really part of a whole other wave of people who maybe are making a financial choice, a lifestyle choice, whatever it is. But it is remarkable to see a guy walk away at this stage of his career.
Give us the top 2.
Number 2 got to be Jude Bellingham. Every time I look, I look at his age, I'm always shocked. I'm shocked by how many minutes he's played. I'm shocked about how important he is. I'm shocked about how good he is. And that Real Madrid midfield, and what can it be? It's going to turbocharge in the future the whole next generation thing. Bellingham, Tchouaméni, Valverde, Camavinga, if he doesn't play left back. I think there's a reason to be excited about him. I think the last time Real Madrid brought really a young player of this caliber at this age, I think you got to go way, way back. A guy who's already proven, rather than a guy with more of an upside like perhaps Tchouaméni was.
All right, Gab, bring us home.
Number 1, this transfer hasn't actually been done, even though everybody from Jorge Mas on down seems to assume that it is done. But Lionel Messi, anything this guy's going to do is going to be significant. But Lionel Messi choosing to go to Major League Soccer, you've seen the frenzy it's already created. And again, he hasn't officially signed yet. Who knows if something might go wrong? But, it is going to be a tremendous, tremendous storyline. People are comparing all sorts of things in the past. Is he going to convert the U.S. to the sport? I have no idea. But it's going to be a fun ride.
Gab making a push to be on Football Americas there with Lionel Messi, number 1. Anything on that list jump out to you? Craig?
Well, I agree. I mean, Kai Havertz, I think, is going to be a really intriguing one to see if he can resurrect the consistent form that he showed as a youngster at Bayer Leverkusen. And I think that's what obviously Arsenal are hoping. And it could happen, particularly going in there under a better structure than it was last year. Previously, it was a bit better at Chelsea. So Havertz is definitely intriguing. I mean, I won't be throwing the remote control at the wall when I can't find the Saudi Premier League or whatever it's called. So I'm not really too fussed about that. I won't be, no, I can't find it. Anyway, they're getting lots of money. So blah, blah, blah. Jude Bellingham, yeah, I agree. I think Jude Bellingham, and we've talked about this in the show, great maturity for one so young. I have no qualms or reservation that it's going to be a success for him, because I think he's such a talented player, and having had 3 years in Dortmund. And that's, to me, Havertz and Bellingham, to me, are more interesting than Lionel Messi, because the only interest I've got in Lionel Messi really is whether we're going to see a motivated Lionel Messi, if indeed this contract is signed, whether we see a fit Lionel Messi, and who is really up for, the swan song of his career at his age. If he is, we could already tell you what's going to happen. He's going to waltz past some of these wooden defenders that are in Major League Soccer, the likes of Giovinco and others, made a mockery of, and we're going to find out. And if he's not motivated, and he starts to put a bit of timber on, and Miami's very
timber,
a bit of timber. I know, no, and Miami's a very interesting place to live, and the lifestyle gets the better of you. Then we might not see the best of him. That's the intrigue for me. But if he's fit and motivated, you think he's going to struggle in Major League Soccer if Lionel Messi's fit and motivated?
No,
I don't think so.
Of course not. I think the biggest question is not whether he's fit and motivated, it's what's happening around him, because that franchise has been a mess for a long time.
Right, and if what's happening around him continues to be a mess, and I know they finished bottom of their conference, or is that right? I don't know.
Yeah, they're bottom now.
They're the bottom. It's still going on. I have no idea. I don't watch it. And what that is the interesting question. If he gets frustrated with what's around him,
he's never been on a team that bad,
and he's training with those guys 5-6 times a week, right? That could get very frustrating very quickly. Right. So that's the intrigue. But I'm sure you're going to talk about it on your show on a regular basis.
What show is that? Are you talking about Football Americas? We will talk about it. We're also probably going to talk about this quote from the guy who's going to be signing the checks for Lionel Messi, Jorge Mas, the owner of Inter Miami. Now, we know MLS has never been known for its hyperbole, but here's this from Jorge. Quote, Messi can turn MLS into the second or third best league in the world. Frank, what do you think?
No. No. I mean, yeah, in terms of media, in terms of making the MLS more important on the fans or the fans of football's view, yes, okay, but no, not one guy can make the others better. No, not Lionel Messi at 30-something is going to make the other better. He's going to make the MLS better because he's in there, but it won't make the other better. That's for sure. That's not... I don't agree with that.
Gab?
Jorge Mas tonto? Is that what? No. Look, I don't know. You got to sell tickets. I appreciate it, right? So go ahead and sell it if you think else will make tickets. But look, Major League Soccer could become the second or third best league in the world, but it's not going to be Lionel Messi at his age that's going to change it. You know how we know that? Because Lionel Messi went to Liga, right? And he played not just with a bunch of stiffs who were last on the table, but he played with Kylian Mbappe and Neymar and Sergio Ramos and Verratti and the whole gang. And did that elevate Liga to become the second or third best league in Europe, let alone the world? No, it didn't move the needle. It didn't move the needle at all. Just moved the needle to more people wanting to watch Paris Saint-Germain. So it's not going to work that way. But I appreciate it. You want to sell tickets, you want to hype it up, that's fine. But you can't put the onus. One player is not going to do that, not even Lionel Messi, and certainly not Lionel Messi at his age. You can't elevate an entire league. The league still doesn't work that way. And by the way, I think the American fan is much more sophisticated than that.
Every year, we seem to have this, somebody pops up with this ridiculous statement. Look, if Lionel Messi is the Pied Piper and they're all following him, behind him, that's potential to clearly make Major League Soccer better. It's not going to make it, still not going to make it the second or third best league in the world. Not even going to come close. So as Gab said, one guy's not going to make it. More people are not going to watch Major League Soccer because Lionel Messi's here. More people are going to watch, well, ultimately there'll be a little bit more. More people are going to watch Inter Miami and whoever's playing Inter Miami. They're not going to watch the rest of the teams.
That's a good point, yeah.
They're not going to watch the rest of the teams on any given weekend or whenever they're playing, but there's more eyeballs going to be on Inter Miami and their opponents. Look, Gab's mentioned France and how it couldn't move the needle there. And there's been some great teams historically and are in France, you know, with the Lyons, Montpellier, Strasbourg, where Frank plays, Marseille, the list goes on, never mind talking about Paris Saint-Germain. Then we're not even getting to Italy and the Milan teams and the Juve and the Romas and all, and Germany. And so we've got to stop this nonsense. We've got to stop it. It's not even an argument. It's not even a debate.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're having that debate on your show, Football America, you need to change it. Right? It's not a debate.
Well, you're welcome to come to the rundown meeting anytime you like.
By the way, you seem a bit demotivated for this show today. Do you see this as a step down?
No.
You just seem as if you're not.
No.
There's the energy. I'm not feeling the energy today.
I got a Football Americas later tonight, so I can't.
Well, I'm getting the feeling you're saving kind of
not.
what you perceive as your best for that show.
Nope.
And you're leaving
not.
You're leaving us in your wake.
I am emptying the tank.
Well, your boss, he wants full commitment to this today.
Yep.
Right.
What I will say is this about Lionel Messi. MLS will never be top 2, top 5, top 10 until they get rid of the salary cap. And the one thing that's happening here...
Oh, listen, pack it in.
No. If the United
enough.
States starts spending money, they will attract talent. Maybe not top 2, top 3, but Lionel Messi being paid $50-60 million a year is going to do away with the salary cap.
Yeah. And what about Saudi Arabia? Who's going to do away with Saudi Arabia?
Lionel Messi had the choice to go to Saudi Arabia. Where did he choose?
Well, he chose America, but
Okay. There you go. Is there a bigger name than Messi? No.
Where did Ronaldo and Benzema and the others choose?
Oh, well,
Saudi Arabia.
That's
Is
fine.
Saudi Arabia a problem for Major League Soccer?
Yes.
Right, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, why are you arguing with me?
But not that big a problem because I got Messi.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.